I only have my iPad, but I don't.
I forgot mine today too. I mean, like prepared, no, ready, yes.
I'm not even aware.
Yeah,
I just got back from
yeah.
Hawaii.
Oh, did you really?
My daughter was in the
Well, they do. That they really
Oh,
do.
cool.
I like it better.
Was it only December 4th?
I have them
Isn't that the
already in my
date?
system,
December,
for
okay.
records and everything. So it's just easier for me to do it this way. But
in her camp. I did.
right.
Audition. And they
Yeah.
but I was like, Cindy, I'm going.
Yeah.
Chaperone.
Oh, well, cool. All right, we're going to get started. Good afternoon. The Memphis and Shelby County Board of Adjustment is hereby called to order for its regularly scheduled meeting of December 20th, 2023. My name is Tim Rainey. I'm chairman of the board. Mr. Brett Ragsdale serves as secretary of the board. Mr. Ragsdale, may I get a roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Ms. Baker?
Here.
Mr. Bruce?
Present.
Ms. Skurlock?
Here.
And Ms. Sharp?
Here.
Vice Chair Savage Towns?
Present.
Chair Rainey?
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right, thank you. The Memphis and Shelby County Board of Adjustment is the oldest appointed governmental body in Memphis and Shelby County, established in 1925. The board hears appeals from the administration of the zoning ordinance, requests for variances from the zoning ordinance, and other requests as articulated by local zoning laws adopted pursuant to the enabling legislation. The 8 members of the board are appointed 4 by the mayor of Memphis and 4 by the mayor of Shelby County, with confirmation by the Memphis City Council or the Shelby County Board of Commissioners. We serve without remuneration. At this time, I'd like to swear in the staff. You may remain seated. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right, thank you. May I get a motion to approve the minutes from last month's meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? All right, the motion passes. Mr. Secretary, could you please provide us with a secretary's report if we have one this month, and then explain the procedure for today's meeting?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have a secretary's report, but I do want to note one thing, that we do have an alternate joining us today, our chair from our Land Use Control Board meeting, Ms. Mary Sharp, and we appreciate her joining us today for this meeting. And I know that she usually does morning meetings, so the afternoon she's just double timing here. We had Land Use Control Board last week, so
right.
It's a lot of work, and we appreciate it. So.
Yeah, thank you, Mrs. Sharp.
And I will go into the procedure for the meetings, which will be as follows. I will introduce each case as listed on the agenda. Copies of the agenda are found on the front right podium. For each case, the planner with the Division of Planning and Development will give a presentation that will contain site plans, photographs, and maps of the subject property. At the conclusion of the staff presentation, the applicant will present his or her case. After the applicant's presentation, the board will hear first from those speakers in support of the application, then from those speakers in opposition to the application, and then finally, the applicant will have an opportunity to provide rebuttal. All parties who wish to provide testimony to the board will be sworn in by the chair. If a member of the audience wishes to provide testimony in support of or in opposition to a particular case on today's agenda, he or she will need to fill out speaker's cards for the record. Speaker's cards are available at the front podium. Once filled out, speaker's cards can be submitted to any DPD staff planner at the left podium. We do not need speaker's cards from the applicants since their names are already part of the record. After all parties have been heard, the board will close the public hearing, make a motion, and deliberate on the case. Pursuant to the board's rules of procedure, the time allotted for each speaker will be as follows. The applicant has 5 minutes to present his or her case. The applicant may reserve unused time for his or her rebuttal. Those speaking in support of the application have 5 minutes. The 5 minutes is the total time allotted for support testimony, regardless of the number of speakers. Those speaking in opposition of the application have 10 minutes. This 10 minutes is the total time allotted for opposition testimony, regardless of the number of speakers. The applicant has 2 minutes for rebuttal in addition to any unused time for his or her presentation time. These times do not include time for questions from and answers to members of the board. The chair may provide additional time provided both sides are given an equal amount of additional time. If the applicant or any speaker would like to be heard after the conclusion of the public hearing, or if a board member wishes to hear additional testimony from any party, a 2/3 vote is required to reopen the public hearing pursuant to the board's rules of procedure. Please note that once the public hearing is reopened, both the applicant and opposition will be allowed to provide additional testimony and/or rebuttal. All motions made by this board will be made in the affirmative. The private acts governing the board require the affirmative vote of at least 5 members to approve an application, regardless of the number of board members present. The board may also vote to hold an application for a period not to exceed 3 months with the consent of the applicant or 1 month without the consent of the applicant. All section numbers that we refer to come from the Memphis and Shelby County Unified Development Code, or the UDC, which was adopted by the Memphis City Council and Shelby County Board of Commissioners in August of 2010 and effective on January 1st of 2011. I will introduce the entire UDC and make it part of today's record, thus dispensing with the reading of individual sections. The board is vested with the power to act on these cases before us today under the provisions of Chapter 9.22 of the UDC. Mr. Chairman, I submit that all cases have been filed in proper order, all applicants have been notified of this hearing, and all notice requirements have been fulfilled as required by the UDC.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. At this point, the board will establish a consent agenda. To establish the consent agenda, the secretary will call out each eligible case. If any member of the audience, staff, or board member objects to a case being placed on the consent agenda, he or she should make their objection known by a show of hands when the secretary reads that case. Once the consent agenda is established, the board will vote on all cases placed on the consent agenda as a whole and will not hold individual public hearings on those cases. Mr. Secretary, which items on our agenda are eligible to be placed on consent this month?
Item number 1, BOA 2023-0132, 4650 Laurel Oaks Drive as a 1-month hold. Item number 3, BOA 2023-0140, 3341 Poplar Avenue as a 1-month hold. Item number 4, BOA 2023-0141, A.W. Willis Avenue and Thomas Street as a 1-month hold. BOA 2023-0142, 3704 Gray Road. Item number 6, BOA 2023-0143, 666 South Riverside Drive as a 1-month hold. Item number 8, BOA 2023-0145, 843 Dallas Street. Item number 9, BOA 2023-0146. Item number 10, BOA 2023-0148, 322 South Cleveland Street. Item number 11, BOA 2023-0149, 3951 Lamar Avenue as a 1-month hold. Item number 12, BOA 2023-0150, 4175 Winchester Road as a 1-month hold. Item number 13, BOA 2023-0151, 232 Val Avenue. Item number 14, BOA 2023-1052, 217 Ingle Avenue. Item number 15, BOA 2023-0153, 10170 Raleigh-LaGrange Road as a 1-month hold. And item number 16, BOA 2023-0154, 4860 Getwell Road.
Okay. Thank you very much. If we could get a motion from the board to approve the consent agenda, which I have as 1, 3, and 4 as 1-month holds, 5, approval with conditions, 6 is a 1-month hold, 8, 9, 10, approval with conditions, 11 and 12 are 1-month holds, 13 and 14, approval with conditions, 15 is a hold, or 1-month hold, and 16, approval with conditions.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, being moved in second, I want to remind you all that by voting on the consent agenda, each board member confirms he or she affirms that they have read the staff report in full agreement with the conditions. Mr. Secretary, may I get a roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Ms. Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Bruce?
Yes.
Ms. Skurlock?
Yes.
Ms. Sharp?
Yes.
Vice Chair Savage Towns?
Yes. I find that the standards of 9.22.6 of the UDC are being met and will not be unduly detrimental to the properties in the vicinity.
And Chair Rainey?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, motion carries. So if you're here for any of those cases, otherwise known as any cases besides number 2 and number 7, you've been approved or held as requested. And so you're free to go and or you can stay and join in the fun. So we got a couple takers on the leave, so that's good. Mr. Ragsdale, will you call the first case we're going to hear today?
Sir, it's item number 2, BOA 2023-0138, 1663 Autumn Avenue.
Okay, is the applicant present? Come down, okay, come down front. I know we have opposition, so we'll start with a staff report on this, and then we'll go into hearings and all that from everybody.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Aisha Penzis with the Division of Planning and Development. Item before you is BOA 2023-0138, which is a significant neighborhood structure conditional use permit to allow a coffee shop and art studios along with a place of worship at a property currently zoned as residential single-family 6. In September of this year, the board heard another conditional use permit application for this property, and that application was denied. The location map shows the approximate area of the subject property in Midtown, and vicinity map shows the subject property highlighted in yellow and properties within the 500 feet radius of the subject property, owners of which received a public notice of this application. Subject property is an existing vacant church zoned as residential single-family 6 in Evergreen Historic District. Land use map shows that the surrounding properties consist of single-family residential and multifamily residential, and there's a property in institutional use to the northeast of the property. Here are some site photos showing the front facade of the subject property, view from Autumn Avenue, looking south, and view from the intersection of Autumn and Dickinson Street, looking southeast. And here are other views of the structure, right facade of the subject structure from Dickinson Street, and the existing alley at the rear of the property. Proposed site plan shows the existing structure with site improvements such as new landscaping, trash and recycling collection, mechanical units, a new ADA ramp, modified side patio, and available on-street parking spaces, 7 on Dickinson Street side and 2 on Autumn Avenue in front of the property. Here, the proposed floor plans show the 3 proposed uses for the structure. On the first level, we have the gathering space highlighted in yellow to be used as the main chapel area, and the coffee shop highlighted in red. And on the level 0, which is the basement level, we have the art studios highlighted in blue. Here are some renderings provided by the applicant showing the exterior of the structure. Here is the view from Autumn Avenue showing the front facade of the structure, and here is the view from Dickinson Street showing the right facade of the existing structure. In conclusion, applicant is requesting a significant neighborhood structure conditional use permit to allow a coffee shop and art studios along with a place of worship at the property. And per the UDC, a place of worship is a use allowed by right at this location, so the request is to allow the coffee shop and the art studios. Proposed site plan and floor plans show that the structure will be reused as a place of worship, coffee shop, and art studios with various site improvements. The site plan also shows a total of 9 on-street parking spaces adjacent to the subject property along Autumn Avenue and Dickinson Street. The building was built over 100 years ago and originally served as a church. However, it has been vacant since mid-2000s. This property is located in Evergreen Historic District, and it's considered a contributing structure to the Evergreen National Register District on national level and Evergreen Historic District on local level. Due to its historic significance, staff agrees that the subject property meets the criteria for consideration as a significant neighborhood structure. Staff also believes that every effort should be made to preserve and rehabilitate this structure so that it can serve for and enhance the historic fabric of Evergreen neighborhood. Staff agrees that the proposed uses will have an impact on traffic and parking conditions. of the immediate vicinity of the subject property. However, based on the current conditions of the general block of the subject property, we believe there is enough amount of on-street parking which can compensate for the fact that the subject property does not have any off-street parking available. We also agree that granting of this variance will not cause substantial detriment to the public good and will not substantially impair the intent and purpose of any adopted plans or the UDC. Therefore, we recommend approval of this request with 8 conditions. 1, any events that are to be held at the proposed gathering space shall be associated with a place of worship. 2, any events that are to be held at the proposed gathering space shall be limited to maximum of 99 people. 3, operating hours of the proposed gathering space shall be limited as outlined Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m., and Sunday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. 4, operating hours of the proposed coffee shop shall be limited as outlined Monday through Saturday, 7 a.m. to 4 p.m., Sunday, 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. 5, art studios shall not be used for activities as listed, radio, TV, or recording studios. 6, all exterior alterations, site improvements, demolition, and/or new construction that are visible from the street shall be subject to the Landmarks Commission approval and certificate of appropriateness. 7, screening of mechanical equipment, trash enclosures, etc., which are not visible from the street will require review and approval by the DPD staff. And lastly, 8, any change or deviation from the site plan upon the determination of the zoning administrator shall be subject to the Board of Adjustment review and approval or administrative review and approval by the DPD staff. This concludes my staff presentation. I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Penzis. Are there any questions for staff at this time? All right, if the applicant will come forward, if you'll give your name and address for the record.
John Halford, 1905 Overton Park Avenue, Memphis, Tennessee, 38112.
To tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
I would like to first say that at the request of the support that they asked me to, and also for efficiency, and because we've got a lot to cover, go ahead and use the 10 minutes that we have to cover.
Yeah, not a problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then I'll go ahead and get started. Thank you, DPD staff, for the presentation and members of the board. My name is John Halford. I'm here representing Connect Design. We are a local Memphis architecture firm, and we specialize in historic preservation projects. I grew up in Memphis. I'm a Memphis native, and I live just up the street in Evergreen District near the park. I drive, walk, or run by this building numerous times a day, and every day I see what was once active is now a blighted building, and it's vacant. The entire east side of Dickinson is vacant where this building sits. In fact, over 25 years, this building has been the target, and deservingly so, of complaints by the neighborhood. About 2 years ago, Mr. Frank Smith, the owner, decided to take action. He, against all odds, found out who owned the building. He was able to claim title to the property, and from there, he pushed up his sleeves. He got to work restoring and stabilizing this structure. At some point, some additional neighbors joined in, and together they envisioned a space for the community. They came up with a feasible project that included a bakery and a space where the community could gather. Unfortunately, and sadly, those neighbors were run off, and in fact, their businesses, which are treasured by the Evergreen community, were boycotted. So given the most recent flyers, the misinformation, and the miscommunication, I'm disappointed to see how, again, fear and social media continues to divide and silo our community. It's easy to perceive change, even the restoration of an old church building, as a threat to the status quo, as a threat to what you see every day. Our minds, especially when prompted, rush to the potential negatives of a project. I'm hopeful that today we can take real and measured steps towards saving this building. It's important to note that a step towards saving this building is not a step away from conversation. It is not a step away from community engagement. In fact, that's the purpose of this project. What we imagine, I'm speaking as much to the BOA as I'm speaking to my neighbors, is a fellowship hall that we can come together and, for instance, host a potluck, not a commercial restaurant. What we envision is a space where it's that time of year we could meet and start caroling, move throughout the neighborhood, and perhaps come back for a cup of hot chocolate. It's a space for piano recitals or violin recitals. It's not a space that's like the Shell or like Minglewood Hall. So that said, the team at Connect and I am personally committed to maintaining an open dialogue with my neighbors, not only in the design process, as we've done thus far, but also moving forward, and more importantly, in the eventual operation of this building. So let's talk about the project. As the DPD staff mentioned, it's going to include a place of worship, a neighborhood cafe, and art studios. The place of worship and ancillary uses are allowed by right, whereas the cafe and the art studios are allowed under a significant neighborhood structure conditional use permit. It's important to state that the UDC was written specifically to allow these types of uses in these types of buildings. As I've stated, the building was historically designed as a public gathering space. It was never intended to be a residence or multifamily residence. To propose the conversion of this building into single-family or multifamily would be directly in contradiction to the guidelines set forth by the State Historic Preservation Office, by the National Park Service, by the Landmarks Commission, as well as our very own UDC as it relates to significant neighborhood structures. Again, the concept of cutting a garage door, no matter how you dress it up, into the side of a historic facade is against these guidelines. Carving up historic spaces into bathrooms, living rooms, closets, bedrooms is against the guidelines set forth by these entities. I know there have been concerns about infrastructure and utilities as well as waste management. If somebody doesn't know how it's going to work, then they're going to fear the worst. I get that. However, this building was designed to accommodate all necessary infrastructure, and it's been operational since 2014. Our team's expertise, particularly in engineering, ensures that all code requirements will be met. Also, in response to the concerns and as a condition to this application, we will provide a detailed waste management plan to the DPD staff, and that will describe the volume, the location, and pickup of all waste. We can do this for HVAC as well. The concerns about the required parking have also been heard, and to the extent feasible, they've been addressed. As you know, this building takes up most of the site, and so there's no room for parking on the site. Notably, the angled parking has been removed at the request of neighbors, and we've provided a study to the DPD staff showing that the peak demand has been met for the on-street parking in accordance with the UDC, and there is additional parking per the historic design of Dickinson. The Fellowship Hall is a beautiful historic space designed for public gathering and for music. Events that will be held in the Fellowship Hall, as the DPD staff stated, will be an extension of the church's activities. This is a change that we've made from even our original application. The coffee shop is envisioned as a neighborhood coffee shop, a place to study, work, meet with our neighbors. The space will be clean, it'll have comfortable furniture, a relaxing but refined atmosphere that's appropriate for a historic space, i.e. a church. If you remember, there were concerns regarding the smell of baked bread in the mornings, so we've eliminated the commercial kitchen, and so there'll be no exhaust to speak of. The art studios, similarly, will not contribute to noise or smells in any any sense of the word. These are light uses that have been specifically selected based on their peak demand and to be respectful for the historic structure as we believe is required by the guidelines that we're following. It's important to note that our community engagement has been extensive and responsive. We've held multiple meetings, we've listened to concerns, and we've revised our proposals accordingly, as you can see here. I personally have reviewed every statement and letter of support and opposition. I've analyzed these and I've provided responses to each and every one to the DPD staff. Moving forward, as I've said, we will continue to maintain this level of engagement. This process will be a lengthy one. It's not quick and easy to get one of these types of buildings online. And so we will make sure that throughout that process, as well as the operation, that we're communicating with our neighbors. In closing, I urge the board to recognize the potential of this project as a thoughtful, feasible, vetted, and timely development that preserves the historical character, not only of this building that's been there for 100 years, but also, very technically, the historic character of our neighborhood, of my neighborhood. Thank you.
How much time do we have?
126.
We're at 126. Real quick, Mr. Halford, are there any questions for Mr. Halford before we move to the opposition?
Yeah, let me, if I can, ask a question. When this property was before us in the past, I think we talked about we encouraged you to get with the neighbors and talk with them and get their input. And I know you said you have done that. I just wanted to hear from you, give me specifics about what you've done to talk to your neighbors, what kind of response you got, and how you went through the process of allowing them to have input into your planning process.
Sure. So the first thing that I did was I collected all the letters that we had in the previous application, and I reviewed all those in detail, and I was able to understand what it was that they were opposing. And fortunately, I did find that there was a huge support to maintain this historic structure or to preserve this historic structure. From there, and specifically, we spoke at a public gathering to the neighbors. We were able to answer questions there. I was able to speak to many of the neighbors after that. We held focus groups. I've met with other groups of people or businesses in the district as well that I've reached out to or they've reached out to me, and then countless individual one-on-one meetings. I will say, and I meant this when I said it in my presentation, that there's been a siloing effect and there's been quite a bit of misinformation regarding this project. And so today, just like I've been doing over the last couple of months, it's really important to communicate exactly what it is that we're intending to use the space. It's not this big commercial endeavor, and so communicating that with the neighborhood has been it's been a task, especially in considering that there are flyers being sent out and Facebook posts being sent out and that sort of thing.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. We will move now to the opposition. And so I have 3 cards. Do y'all have an order y'all'd like to speak?
Yes, I'm Carrie Brooks.
Okay, so you're up first. And then since we have at least three speakers, is there like a time limit where you want me to give you like where you are on time for the 10 minutes, or are you just like—
I'm trying to keep mine within 5 minutes, and then the second speaker is 5 minutes, and we wondered you may have questions for the third person. So we may not have a third person speak.
Okay, very good. And then I'll let you know when you're like at 4.5 minutes, just so you know.
Perfect.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, if you'll give your name and address for the record.
Okay, my name is Carrie Brooks, and I live at 411 Dickinson Street, 38112.
Okay, and then do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, go ahead and share with us.
Okay, thank you so much, and good afternoon to all of you, and thank you very much for your service in what seems like a pretty difficult job to me, and also just for the opportunity to speak with all of you today about our concerns. So we, and I'm talking about me and all these nice people behind me. You will see their signs. And also all of those who wrote those over 100 letters to you. That was a lot of letters, I think. We are opposed to this commercial use variance that allows encroachment and sets a precedent for future commercial development in our quiet residential neighborhood, that area that we live in Evergreen Historic District. So in this next slide, you see my house. Welcome to my home. It is located directly west of the building. You saw the drawings earlier. And I have lived in this house with my husband for almost 20 years, and we've enjoyed it tremendously. We've taken great pride in our home and our neighborhood and consider it really the best place that we've ever lived, and we've been together 35 years. We've hosted many gatherings here on that front porch you see, and we would like to continue to do that. This commercial proposal before you, though, will establish in its use, practical use, a 10,000 square foot, fully for-profit, fully commercial structure in the middle of a very quiet, completely residential part of Evergreen Historic District. And of course, I, again, live directly across from that, and many others live very closely adjacent to it. Along with those of us who are here today, the vast majority of neighbors oppose this plan, as do 4 local preservation groups involved in Evergreen and also Midtown. You may recall from the last proposal rejected in September, and it was rejected for the very same reasons that we are citing before you today. It was rejected due to the location and restriction of the grounds and site. A commercial venue on this very restricted site will result in overtaxed infrastructure, increased traffic, and excessive parking needs, those which really I don't think can be resolved, and inappropriate hours of operation, basically 7 in the morning until 10 at night. And then that's for the coffee shop and the gathering space and event space. And then if you throw in those artists, and if y'all know artists like I do, they work 24/7, so they will be there overnight, I'm sure, and maybe even sleep there sometimes. This is not appropriate for a neighborhood like ours. However, we do have some good news. Denying this application does not doom this building, because there are 2 options that we want to share with you today. In a conversation that we had on Sunday, our neighbor Caroline, who you might remember who spoke the last time, she lives literally 10 feet from the side of this building, from the east side of this building. She spoke last Sunday with the developer, John, whom you just heard from. And in that conversation, he indicated should this proposal be denied, he would consider eliminating all commercial aspects of the plan and restoring the building to its original function as a church. In your staff report, the first condition says that any events that are held at the proposed gathering space shall be associated with a place of worship. Restoration without commercial as a church aligns with the condition that you set forth. If Mr. Halford would eliminate all commercial aspects of the proposal, there would be no need for a BOA review. In addition, he would get significant support from the neighborhood and community groups that he has not enjoyed so far. The second option is Will McGowan, who is a longtime resident of Memphian, and he's a craftsman who has experience in the restoration of older buildings, and he's actively involved in preservation in the city. And he actually developed a large commercial building downtown that he owned and restored. He has submitted a plan. He has submitted a plan and letter of intent to the current owner of the building for restoration and conversion to a low-density owner-occupied residence. He estimates his project will take about a year. He's already planning Thanksgiving dinner there to invite neighbors to celebrate his move-in, and his option would receive significant support from the neighborhood and community groups. So back to the plan that you have in your hands today, even if we disregard these two very viable and appropriate options, there are many reasons to deny this proposal. And the neighbors, and there are many who have weighed in on this, and you have read their letters, they see serious issues with this proposal. And with that, I want to introduce my neighbor, Jim Renfro, who will talk about those issues.
Okay, thank you. Hey, and if you will give your name and address for the record.
My name is Jim Renfro. I live at 1666 Overton Park Avenue.
Okay, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay,
yes.
Go ahead, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Carrie, and thank you, Board. We greatly appreciate this opportunity to present our point of view regarding this proposal. First of all, with regard to Mr. Bruce's question about engagement, you did indeed encourage us to meet with the developer of this new proposal and to try to come to an agreement that would benefit everyone regarding the use of this building. The neighbors took it upon themselves to schedule 2 meetings, November 3rd and November 8th. Mr. Halford was present at both meetings. The neighbors were there. We presented our serious concerns with the proposal that sits in front of you today. And unfortunately, none of our concerns have been addressed by this proposal. We also, of course, received the staff report, have read it very carefully. We truly understand how much work goes into this, and we appreciate that greatly. But we do have many serious disagreements with the conclusions of the staff report, and I will try to summarize those as quickly as I can. First and foremost, the overall conclusion of the report is that this 10,000 square foot commercial building will be compatible with our residential neighborhood. We disagree completely. First of all, the proposal does not even mention on-site management or security, which in our minds means that any conditions, any limitations with regard to numbers of attendees, hours of operations, trash pickup, litter pickup, parking, traffic, none of these limitations can be enforced because there's no on-site management. As someone else mentioned, it's a very small site with absolutely no on-site parking. And there is very limited street parking on Dickinson and especially on Autumn. And those parking spaces that are available are used by residents. Autumn is an extremely narrow street. And all of us witnessed on Halloween night where there were many cars, many trick-or-treaters. It was so crowded that a fire truck could not get down the street. Subsequently, there was a child's birthday party held on Autumn. And because of the traffic and parking on Autumn, another emergency vehicle could not make it down the street. The conditions in the staff report list hours of operations for the coffee shop restaurant and the event space. These are 2 commercial operations. Their combined hours of operations are 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., 6 days a week in a residential neighborhood. Sunday is 8 to 5. We truly believe that those hours of operations, 6-7 days a week, are far more than a church would ever have and are far more than our residential neighborhood should be asked to endure. The art studios, no hours of operations are even listed. So knowing the artists I know, that means they're open 24 hours a day. We know that this proposal will result in additional traffic, additional trash, additional litter. And my last point on this slide, our homes are very close together. As Carrie mentioned, Carolyn's house is 10 feet from the building. That means her 2 kids and she will be living 10 feet away from the event space, the art studios, and the coffee shop restaurant. Another disagreement that we have with the staff report, we do not believe it recognizes the fact that this proposal will violate Memphis 3.0 land use. The Evergreen Historic District is primarily a single-unit neighborhood. Our part is completely residential. And the 3.0 objective is, and I'll read this one quote, to preserve and maintain the housing stock. There is nothing in the language that even remotely discusses commercial uses. Carrie talked about the overwhelming opposition to this.
We're out of
I'm so
time.
sorry.
We're out of time. That's what the buzzer was a minute ago.
All right.
But we can have, hold on just a second. Let's get some questions.
Okay.
And then we'll talk some more. Are there any questions for the opposition?
Yes, I have some. I've reviewed the handout.
Yes,
and I'm seeing that the neighbors, one of the options that they agree with are restoration, conversion to low-density owner-occupied residence. How low of density? I mean, 10,000 square feet.
Mr. McGowan is actually here. The last I saw of his plan was his residence and one apartment.
So 7,000 square foot home and a 3,000 square foot apartment?
Well, my understanding again, and we'd have to ask him to be sure, the apartment would be in the basement. And I don't know how much of the basement.
Right here, he could answer.
He's right there if we can ask him.
Hold on. He's not sworn in.
Okay.
So I don't, I think we have to ask for additional testimony to do that.
Oh, okay.
If that makes sense, which we can. Yeah, that's like somebody wanting to do something as opposed to the project before us.
It is, and but they're throwing in, these are all what somebody else wants to do with it versus.
Do we have
what's actually
5 hands that want to hear more about the house?
Well, and I don't need to hear any more.
Okay.
I mean, that two people the question was low density,
Yeah.
and it was answered sufficiently.
Okay, perfect.
The low density.
If we have 5 minutes, I'd be happy to use it. Not about that, but to complete this, because I truly.
Does the applicant have trouble with, we'd add, equal time for rebuttal to do like a 5-minute extension? Is that going to be an issue?
We're not intending to, I've
Go to the next slide.
Some of what's been said in my 2 minutes. We're not intending to have additional presentation time, or we didn't intend to.
Yeah.
If you have an issue with there being conversation, then I encourage it. So
Okay.
if this is helpful to the
Gotcha. Okay. Then do we have do we have any opposition on the board to allowing 5 more minutes of testimony?
5 more? What about 1?
You think 1 more?
I think 2. We can give them 2 to sum up.
He was just cut off.
1 or 2?
It won't be 5 minutes.
Okay. I'm hearing 2. 2 minutes, okay?
I'll talk as fast as I can.
That's fine, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Carrie mentioned the overwhelming opposition. 125 individuals wrote you in opposition to this proposal, 92 of whom live in Evergreen. We determined only 6 from Evergreen wrote in favor of this proposal. We all agree that the building needs to be saved. We overwhelmingly disagree that this is the plan to do it. And Mr. Halford mentioned focus groups, his meetings with neighbors. I know of none other than the 2 that we organized, and I challenge anyone sitting behind me to say that they heard of or participated in a focus group regarding this building. In addition to the individuals, we have 4 major neighborhood community preservation groups who strongly oppose this proposal. Memphis Heritage says deny the current application. MidtownMemphis.org reject this proposal. Midtown Action Coalition, a commercial development, and it is a commercial development. This complex does not belong in the middle of a quiet residential neighborhood. And lastly, our very own Evergreen Historic District Association deny this application. Almost finished. All of us here, everyone behind me, we have chosen to live in a historic district because we want to preserve historic buildings and the character of our neighborhood. Our house is 117 years old. We firmly believe that development can and must be appropriate for the neighborhood, follow adopted plans, codes, and guidelines, and not have undue adverse effect on neighbors. And I hope we've been able to demonstrate that there will be many undue, serious adverse effects.
That finished it.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to see. So
No.
yes.
You kind of ended that sentence right with my timer for some reason. Didn't make any noise, but it went off.
Okay.
Are there any questions?
Thank you guys very much. And again, we are obviously asking you to reject what we think is a terrible proposal for our neighborhood.
Any questions? Okay.
Let me ask. I know you gave two options, two other, told us that there are two proposals on the table. Is there a particular use that you think the neighbors would want for this property? And I'm asking a question. It's my understanding that the building has been vacant for a number of years, and no one really did anything with it until now. So now there's somebody stepping up. Now we got opposition. So what do you want to do with the property?
If I'd only had 30 more seconds, but I can answer the question. No, I know. The two options that we strongly believe would receive very strong neighborhood support and support from these organizations are the two that we've mentioned. First of all, when Mr. Halford spoke to our neighbors Sunday, he said that he could eliminate all commercial aspects of this proposal and restore it truly to being a church. We will support that. The other option is the owner-occupied residence that Mr. McGowan has talked to us about. As long as it is low density, which is exactly what he is planning, I think that would also get very strong support from the neighborhood and from the organizations that we've mentioned.
Okay, thank you, Speaker.
Mr. Renfro, is there a number of units residential that you would maybe be satisfied with? How far could that go, I guess my question, other than one?
Other than one, but darn, that's...
Well, I hope you can get one, but I'm just asking.
Honestly, it's hard for me to say. We've talked about we and our group of friends and neighbors have talked about 2 apartments,
But you are saying that you would entertain the idea of more than one unit if it was low density?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Back to the proposal recommendation of the church. Now, if the church had within its service time a coffee shop or they offered art classes, would you be opposed? Because that's pretty much giving them the coffee shop feel and a small retail, but it's only to the members or it's open during church hours.
We actually already have a church in our neighborhood that does have free coffee once a week, and I've heard it's very good. No, as long as it is truly a church, and the way I read this proposal, the way I've understood everything that Mr. Halford has said, this is a 10,000 square foot commercial building. He may or may not be leasing part of it to a church at some point. But if he turns it into a church, my understanding is we don't even have to come before the board. That's already allowed. So if he wants to make it a church, please make it a church.
Thank you.
Okay. Other questions? I got a question of staff while you're still up here. So I know a number of churches, you talked about like the coffee during that, but like you have the church, I don't know what the name is now. It used to be High Point. They have the hub. People go there all the time. I think Second Pres might have like an actual, like, you can go on a Tuesday morning and buy coffee and just sit there. Is that something those churches had to get separate approval for? Or because they were being run by the church as opposed to run by the landlord, that made a difference?
Correct. Those instances do not require any special approval. They are part of the church, so.
So it really kind of matters on who's managing, who's doing what they do, as opposed to the owner. Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, I've got one more. One of and just trying to understand the conditions here. The first condition says that any events on this property shall be associated with a place of worship. And my understanding of that, just tell me if I'm wrong, is that even the coffee shop and the art studio have to, whatever events they have to be associated with a place of worship. So is that the intent? So is it all really part of a church, of a place of worship? So it really is a church? Just help me understand that first condition, or what you mean by it.
No, sir. The first condition states that any events that are to be held at the proposed gathering space shall be associated with the place of worship. So I'm going to go back to the floor plan.
Oh, I see.
In my presentation.
So that's just for the one big room there, is not the whole property?
Yes.
Okay,
the gathering space in question is highlighted in yellow.
Okay.
So we are conditioning that any events that are to be held within that specific area, highlighted in yellow, to be associated with the place of worship only. So no commercial, unaffiliated events to be allowed at that space. It's just for the church and the church's events, whatever that may be.
Okay, thank you.
Right, so they could have, the church could have a wedding,
Exactly.
during those hours, but they're not having a, hey,
Yes.
some group wants to come in and do something, they just can't rent it to anybody.
Exactly.
Okay.
May I say one thing about this question?
Hold on.
Yes.
You asked a question. Okay,
Yeah,
just
right,
making
yeah.
sure.
I think that the gathering space, it seems clear that there will be a church renting that space. I think our strong concern is about the coffee shop and the artist studios that are commercial. I mean, it's all commercial because it's going to be owned by an LLC. And so if in 2 years, Mr. Halford decides this is not the right thing for me, or, whatever, then this variance will go with whoever he sells it to. So it can be anything. So it is about the immediate use, but it's also just about this commercial aspect that he is asking for, which is the only thing he really has to ask for. If he operates a church there and they have coffee that's free, then no big deal. Lots of churches do that. And you ask about the art classes. If the church offers that for free, then I think a church can do that, actually. They can do a lot of things. We're very concerned about the commercial aspect, designating this use as commercial, because that can lend itself to many things that, for neighbors, that really can get out of hand. And this is a large space in the middle of this small neighborhood. So I hope that clarifies that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
You have questions?
Just a quick piggyback on that. So would you be opposed, so if it were a church that offered sandwiches on Wednesday or Tuesday, they would sell them, it would be retail, but it wouldn't necessarily be during the long duration, maybe during church services or specific days. Would you be opposed to that?
I really don't know enough about churches and what they can and can't do. But all I can say is that we're very concerned about the commercial designation. And if it reverts back to church, there are many different things that I think that churches are allowed to do and do great things, you know. But it's the commercial aspect that we're concerned about, and that's why we brought up the option and shared that Mr. Halford had said in a conversation that if this is rejected today, that he would consider, you know, just doing just a church, and that we think that he would get a lot of support for that. So I hope that helps.
Very much so. Other questions before we move to the rebuttal? All right, thank y'all so much. Appreciate you all coming down. Mr. Halford, I don't know that you sounded like you probably don't need it, but you have actually 5 minutes and 26 seconds is what would be allowed by the rules. Go ahead.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah.
There's been statements that a church would be allowed. One thing that we haven't talked about are all the uses that are ancillary to a church that goes beyond potential coffee experiences and art classes and any other type of class or public engagement, and also daily uses. Most churches are used daily. For instance, a daycare. There are countless number of churches in the city of Memphis that have daycare use, which is a very heavy use, in my opinion, for this location. So when we are considering a church use, there's been a couple of things that we wanted to make sure that we were offering to potential churches. Again, this is a project that we're trying to determine feasibility. We're trying to make sure that we're providing something that has a relatively light peak demand, but also we're thinking about the churches. So a church coming in, or one thing to mention is that my group will be paying for the renovation. So for a church to come in and be tasked with renting out the entire building, all 10,000 square feet of renovated space, and that's just one entity, then that cuts out a lot of the small churches and small congregations that we're specifically trying to market to. So you're cutting out the smaller groups, and now you're coming in with much larger groups and much more established congregations, which is something we're specifically trying to avoid. And even though it's by right, and then more so, we're trying to give a smaller footprint for these churches to be able to utilize so that the amount of money that they have to pay as the church can be much lower. So I appreciate, and actually today is the first time I've heard that the community would be in support of an all-church use. And we have considered that, just as I mentioned on the phone, is that we have considered that. However, we're specifically trying to design these to be beneficial for this potential church. As there's been mention that this is a commercial structure, it is true that I'm committing as a neighbor, we have to take action for this building. It is an environmental court. So yes, we are committing funds to develop this. And that's why we have the ownership and we're committing the funds to do this project. So in that sense, you could call it a commercial structure. However, this structure will be used as a church. That's exactly what we're proposing, as well as other uses that are specifically allowed in the UDC under significant neighborhood structures. We spent a lot of time to think through how this would best serve the neighbors. Additionally, and I mentioned this in my presentation, this will be a slow process. This is not something that we're trying to rush out. We will continue to work with the neighborhood to roll out these uses one at a time in a very slow fashion over it will take more than a year to get this online, just because the level of work that needs to be done for this project. It's not a small building, and it's been deteriorated now for about 25 years. Okay, the last thing that I'll say is that there are a number of people, and I have spoken with, and I know there's a lot of hearsay going on, and there's a lot of claims about things that I've said or things that I'll do, and I can see that clearly represented and the letters of opposition. Again, I've read every one, and it is disheartening to see the amount of information that has been communicated to these people. So they're communicating it back, saying, "Oh no, I'm concerned about this," and I get that. I would also be concerned as a neighbor if I didn't know what was going on. And so having the right information and really understanding exactly what it is that is being proposed, and that I am in fact, and the people involved in this project are in fact very sensitive to the historic character and nature of this building. We are very sensitive to the neighborhood. Despite the challenges, I am 100% not cutting off my neighborhood from communication, and will continue, got all their emails now in the staff report, will continue to engage them every step of the way in the design and operation and the rollout of this building. Thank you.
Okay, I got a couple questions, either for the applicant or staff. Could somebody go over a little more with me about just the significant neighborhood structure? Like, are we concerned with that? When we look at like a historic structure, are we concerned with the outside, the inside, both? A house would look mostly the same. Like maybe you have to cut a garage door or something but you're gonna have to cut up the inside. Tell me a little more what the code and some of that says to that, if that makes sense. Yeah.
I'm trying to pull up the UDC so it's easier to.
Okay.
That's what I was going to suggest, Ms. Benz, is to
I'm
pull up
going
the,
to pull up my
yes.
staff report, which I basically copied the section of the UDC that talks about the
I think
significant neighborhood structure.
9.24.9B maybe, which is also in the staff report, page 23.
You said page 23?
Page 23. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. So. Okay. Mr. Ragsdale, would you like me to read?
If you want to, for everybody, that'd be good. Yeah.
Subsection 9.24.9A outlines the purpose of the significant neighborhood structure provisions. Significant neighborhood structure provisions are intended to protect and preserve existing non-residential neighborhood structures that are important to the historical, architectural, cultural, or civic character of the neighborhood. Some existing older buildings, such as corner stores and churches, may not physically lend themselves for permitted uses within residential areas. While this situation does not pose a problem for previously existing non-conforming uses that are grandfathered in, abandoned uses lose such status. These provisions give relief by allowing non-residential uses following certain criteria as a way to provide an economically viable means to preserve significant neighborhood structures. The designation of significant neighborhood structure status for specific properties shall be processed as conditional uses subject to use table section 2.5.2. So these are the provisions, like the intent of the section that outlines the significant neighborhood structure. And there's a list of criteria consideration for significant neighborhood structures. And the first criteria, it's recognized as a significant element of the neighborhood and or community. It embodies characteristics that distinguish it from other structures of the neighborhood and or community. It is considered historically or architecturally significant. Rezoning of the property on which the structure exists to a general zoning district inconsistent with surrounding or adjacent properties would have a significant negative impact to the neighborhood and our community. Retaining the features of the structure is important in maintaining the traditional neighborhood fabric. Retaining the structure will help to preserve a variety of buildings and structures historically present within the neighborhood, recognizing that such structure may be differentiated by age, function, and architectural style in the neighborhood and our community. Or retaining the structure will help to reinforce the neighborhood and our community's traditional and unique character. So as staff, we looked at these criteria to determine that the church itself is historically significant. and it qualifies to be considered as a significant neighborhood structure.
Okay. Any other questions?
I've got a question. In the opposition's presentation, they talked about two alternatives, and you discussed one of them, that being, just make it fully a church. The other one, if I remember correctly, was that one of them would buy it from you and convert it into a, 2-unit residential property. How do you feel? Can you talk about how you would feel about selling it to somebody, and is that something you'd be open to?
So the property is owned by Barmore Properties, and I'm actually the one buying it now. I am the developer, and the owner is here in support of this development. And I've discussed the potential of single-family and multifamily with them and considered it myself. So based on the definitions that we just read here, but also based on the Guide to Treatment Guidelines 2017 that's referenced by SHPO and MPS, as well as landmarks and other historical entities, a residential project would carve up this space, and in particular, and this is also going off of what was just discussed in terms of other codes or guidelines that we're referencing, those violations are detailed on pages 133 and on 137 of the Guide to Treatment Guidelines, including undermining the building's historic character and altering significant interior features and spaces. And so I strongly believe that not only is a single-family residence not in line with how the UDC was written, but that it would be damaging to this historic structure. I also think it's not feasible. I've done studies myself. We underwrite. I'm an architect, and I have looked at the layout of the lower level and the potential of building or turning that into a parking garage. The columns and the column spacings do not lend themselves well to turn that into a parking garage, as well as the rating requirements and the separations, and then the potential for sprinkler systems in the building as well that's required for any buildings that are larger than 2 units according to the International Fire Code. So there are a number of reasons, and then also the carving up the space, that I would say that use is not feasible. And I would also say that it's unwise to make a step towards that and away from the development and the ownership team that is proposing a use to save this building to something that we are explicitly saying that is not feasible and that we have explored. It's not something that we haven't explored.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? All right, seeing none, thank you very much. If we could go into discussion by putting a motion to approve agenda item number 2, BOA 20-23, or 2023-138. If we get a motion for that.
I so moved.
Second.
All right, Smart. Is there any discussion?
I guess my thought process is that, if the church is an option, I've seen churches that have, I guess, what we would consider a semi-retail aspect to it. I mean, because I've seen churches with the coffee, shops,
Stores,
bookstores.
all sorts
yeah, right. And so I guess I'm just wondering, is that an option that fulfills the retail portion, but is during the time of service? So you're maintaining that option of the service or church or place of worship, I'll say it like that. And then there is the option for some type of retail or services for their constituents or members. So I guess I'm just trying to figure out, how do we fix that if that's the option? Because they don't need to come to us if they maintain it as a place of worship and then get the same feel of some sense of retail with a coffee shop or art or whatever they're trying to.
I think I can probably follow up on that. The way I'm looking at it, and it kind of picks up with what you were talking about, is that I just don't think we're there right now to where we can vote on this and know that we've found the best solution for this building and for this neighborhood. And we've had 2 hearings on it right in a row. And I'll tell you, I'm impressed with all of these citizens that have come down here. I've recognized some of them because from being here last time. But I still just don't think we're there. And I feel bad for the applicant because, I know they've spent a lot of time on it. I know they love the building. I know they're in earnest. Everybody is here. I just don't think we're there. And I can't get comfortable with the establishing commercial here. And maybe we have to go there, in the long run, because there's no other way to solve the building that everybody can agree to. But I just think we've got time. I don't see any reason to push it. That's how I see it.
If I can, I'd like to find a solution that all the neighbors are happy with. It seems to me like that's just, it's going to be hard to do. Like I said, last time they were here before us, the thing that really, stands out to me is, this building has been vacant for, 25 years? Or for a long time. It's been sitting there. And the neighbors didn't like having a vacant building there, but no one did anything. One neighbor...
Hey, we'll talk. We'll talk. It's not been vacant that long. It's been degrading that long because that church kind of got smaller. I think they moved out, in like mid-2010s. Just so you know.
Well, the point is, and I'm sorry I got the times wrong. And,
sure.
And if people did try to do something, I was wrong there. But, somebody did step up and try to do something. One of the neighbors stepped up and tried to do something, put his own money in and said, hey, I'm going to try to do something. Now, I wish they could find a way to find something that everybody would buy into. But, I still applaud the one who stepped up and did something and put his own money on the table and is trying. And I don't want us to discourage him or to punish him or her, whoever it is. I don't want to punish them, cause them to punish them for trying to do something. And I want to keep that in. I'd like for us to keep that in mind as we consider this. So it's we're looking. There's a proposal on the table. We just have to figure out, does that proposal make sense or not? And I don't. It's not like I have one thing in mind or not. Whatever we decide, I want us to keep in mind that somebody did step up and try to do something, and let's keep that in our minds as we make our decision, whatever that decision may be.
I'm sorry to speak out.
You can't. No, thank you. All right, so I kind of agree with you somewhat. Like, I think in that last part that Ms. Pensis read, this sits right where it should as far as something that be considered in a significant neighborhood structure. And our question really, I think it fits very well in that. The question is really the 9.24.6, well, with it have, basically, is it too much of an undue adverse effect on the neighborhood? I think we can consider commercial and residential based on what the UDC tells us. It's just whether or not is it too much for the neighborhood to handle. And I think that's where it lies. I don't know that it is. I think it's a pretty good solution. You're not, yeah. Okay, that's not going to help.
I guess I'd like to comment on those.
Yeah, please do.
Both of you, too. What's the hurry? You know what I mean? We've got it in front of us right now. I agree with that. But the building's going to be there for a length of time. People's consciousness are raised now. You know, they know that this can't just go on forever without something being approved. But, you know, we had it, if it had been the 1 month and then a year and another meeting or something like that, I might say, well,
Mr. Chair,
we probably need to go ahead and do something.
I did just want to speak to that this is, I just want to make sure everyone's aware, this is an environmental court. And so they are moving toward sending this to receivership as soon as they can. And that is, in fact, and I hope that my neighbors will be respectful with their comments. They are, in fact, requesting that to be done as soon as possible. So I agree with you that, you know, we don't have to make very quick decisions, but this has been going on for some time, and it is an environmental court, and they have delayed the receivership to try to get some action on this. And
Okay, I appreciate that information, but I still think that there's no reason why we have to vote on what's in front of us right now. And I would just like to give it a little bit more time. Everybody's heard from the board members out there up here. They know they're going to approve something at some point, but does it have to be today? And with it's, you know, all these people who, I mean, it can be hard. There are a lot of challenges to living in a older neighborhood like this in the core city, and I'm just so grateful that people are willing to do it and put up with everything that comes with it. And part of it is old buildings that have been left behind, and you got to figure out what to do with them, and they're in terrible condition. But you can't make a quick decision on it and feel comfortable that you're doing the right thing. And like I say, putting commercial in this area, completely surrounded by single-family homes, I just can't get comfortable with that. It may be we have to go there, but I'm hoping we don't.
Yes, I would like to add to the discussion, which is, I mean, if I understand any decision goes with the property, and it right now is a church, but given the current church economics, the church that is able to afford to really fully operate this type of structure would be one that would hold events, plural, many people. I mean, you got 11,000 square foot of beautiful, historically wedding appropriate space. There's a Pandora's box there for the taking, and I just want to make sure that it's just out there for awareness, not for.
So in your comment, what you're saying is if we could find a church that could do all this,
more than likely,
that's a bigger church that might be doing a lot more than this.
They would hold event. They would have their main campus and hold weddings and funerals in the beautiful space.
Yeah.
I mean, just speaking economically, you know, and they have that right. But it is intrusive to the neighborhood. You know, I just want to lay out what economic Pandora's box is out there. That's it. It's neither for or against or here or there. It's just the churches that can afford to really upkeep and inhabit a space of historic nature and maintain would use it.
Fine.
Can I get on back to the environmental court? And I did hear the applicant mention that it was initially just brought in on what was the issue with the environmental court?
Because it had been sitting vacant for so many years, and the neighbors actually had tried to get it something resolved with it for some time, and it was taken to environmental court, and that's when the current owner was able to find the ownership. There was some difficulty finding ownership. It was really difficult. And they were able to find the owner, and so they've held off on trying to demolish the structure. And in fact, a lot of the neighbors wanted the structure to be demolished initially when it was environmental court. And I think that now we've all come to agreement that saving the structure is very important. And the time that they have allowed for the receivership is getting very short. They are ready to do it, but they have worked with us and with the owner to try to come to
So
some
there
resolution,
is
but
no time that we're thinking, not to belittle Mary's response, but there's no, either we're looking at demolishing or making a decision is where we are right now.
correct.
All right, other thoughts before we vote? Okay. If you can give us a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Bruce,
Yes.
Ms. Scurlock,
No.
Ms. Sharp,
Yes.
Ms. Baker,
No.
Vice Chair Savage Towns,
No. I find that the standards of the UDC of 9.22.6 are not being met and will be unduly detrimental to the properties in the vicinity.
and Chair Rainey.
Yes.
Motion fails.
Motion fails. All right, thank you all for coming down today. We will move on to the next case. I assume that a lot of y'all probably don't care about the next case. So if you will just be a little quiet as you leave so we can go ahead and start on that, we'd appreciate it. Mr. Ragsdale, we call our next case. Oh, it was a no. It was even, I think, but there weren't enough votes. So it did not pass. Yeah. Mr. Ragsdale, if you'll call the next case for us.
Sir. Item number 7, BOA 2023-0144, 3115 Coleman Road.
Oh, it failed.
Okay, is the applicant present? Is the applicant for the Coleman Road case here?
So it did not get a majority, so it failed.
Are you for the Coleman Road? Are you the applicant? Okay, because the
Okay.
chairman was.
Yeah, if the applicant will come down front, please. Thank
Yes.
you. All right, Ms. Ostadnia, could you give us a staff report, please?
Good afternoon, board members. This is Masan Ostadnia. I'm with DPD today, and I'm representing BOA 2023-0144. The location is 3115 Coleman Road. The request is a use variance from section 2.52 to allow non-medical adult home care in the residential single-family 8 district. And here is the location map. The property is located in northeast. And here is the vicinity map. 72 notices were mailed. And also, this is the zoning map. It is with single family R8. And as you can see, the land use map, it is mostly a single family. And also here are a few pictures of the subject property. And based on the Memphis 3.0, the request is consistent with the future land use. However, the proposed facility is not consistent. And as you can see, the conclusion, this requested use is compatible with the formal location characteristics. Zoning notes, however, it is not consistent with the future land use description and existing adjacent land use, and zoning as the proposed facility is a group living facility in a primarily single-family residential neighborhood, and the parcel is situated in a vulnerable flood zone. And the granting of this variance will cause substantial detriment to the public good. It will substantially impair the intent and purpose of an adopted plan or the Unified Development Code. It will be injurious to the neighborhood and the general welfare, and it will not be in harmony with the purpose and intent of the UDC. Also, I would like to mention that we have received 3 opposition letters, and I believe at least one of them is present here. And however, the staff believes that this use variance need to be rejected, and the only condition is that I rely on board members' decision on the final decision of that. But at this time, the staff believes that the case needs to be rejected. That concludes my staff report. I would be happy to answer any questions.
Yes, ma'am. Do you know how many beds or areas they're going to have in the?
So a little bit detail that I talked to the applicant. They mentioned probably 5 to 7 people will be at the house.
Okay.
I believe it's a 3-bedroom house. And also 2 people will be assisting them, one in the morning shift and the other one in the evening shift.
And is it like around, it's not adult daycare, it's around the clock?
Yes, the senior citizen gonna stay there, and also those 2 people in morning and evening shifts gonna help them in cleaning, cooking, shopping, and etc.
Okay. And do you know who what type of adults we're looking for? Are these like mentally disabled people or just older?
Just the older senior citizens who need help with their daily routine.
Okay, perfect. Other questions for staff? Okay. If the applicant could come forward and give your name and address for the record.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Peter. I'm the representative of this house, and I have my partner, Khawla. She's with me.
Is she do you think y'all both are gonna talk?
We can talk both. Yeah.
Okay, why don't y'all both give if you'll give your name or give me your address, then I'll have you give your name and address, and I'll swear you both in together.
The different address, my home address, or
your home or office, either one.
3115 Coleman Road.
Okay.
Memphis, Tennessee.
All right, and then ma'am?
My name is Carla Upton, 2461 Cape Barcode Cove.
Okay, and do y'all swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God?
I do.
Okay, go ahead, sir. Whoever wants to start. You have 10 minutes.
Yes, we're gonna have the idea of the house. It's actually 5 bedrooms and 2 baths, not 3. On the online, on the Zillow and Realtor, is saying that it's 3 bedrooms, but it's actually 5 bedrooms, not 3. And we are planning to have an elderly, a senior people who does need help, non-medical help, like a daily routine help, like preparing foods, preparing their medication, remind them of their medications, and having their daily help routines by shopping groceries for them, and giving them a furnished house that they can have a comfortable living there, and where their sons and their family doesn't have a time to provide their needs. So we're gonna come here to provide their needs while their family members doesn't have a time to do that.
Okay.
Yeah, the idea that this is all the idea about this house, and I read the letters that we the objections from the residents, and one of them saying that in the past there was a house that was already people they were already doing this type of business, and one of them were saying that the residents will be coming out the street and be running and knocking the neighbors' doors from our idea, and we're gonna have like probably a security, and we're gonna have 2 to 3 caregivers at the house where they're gonna keep their eyes on our elderly residents, so they won't be able to like come, like go out, like get out the house and be running in the streets or crossing the streets. This is one of the letters that they were saying that, about this, and this is my comment about this, because we're gonna have a good management and we're gonna keep our eyes open on them. We're not gonna just leave them to be out of house and just running in the streets. And the other one was saying that this house is 3 bedrooms. How come they're gonna have 5 to 7 people in 3 bedrooms? I already have a comment on this, and I already told you guys that it's gonna be 5 bedrooms, not 3 bedrooms. And we probably gonna have either 1 to 2 elderlies that they're gonna live at each room. Probably there will be couples living in one room, which I don't see any issues with that. If you want to say anything.
Okay. Let me ask you a quick question. Why this house in the middle of residential? Like, it's supposed to be single family, but was there not something that was closer to commercial or closer to where it could be actually zoned for that? That's, there's nothing, what's special about this house that makes it why we're doing it here as opposed to somewhere else? Either one of you, yes.
Okay. Well, it used to be a rental property, this house. Last year's, somebody rented. They was living about 10 people inside the house.
Wow.
They destroyed the house so much. And then the owner, they decided, he don't want to rent it for living property, So I decided I used to have a home care business, going to houses, take care of the elders. So I decided when I see the house is 5 bedroom, I can take care of it. And then the older, they need this kind of space.
Okay. Other questions or comments?
Question. I think I heard you say 5 to 7 and elderly. And this is to the staff. There are definitions in the Unified Development Code that define these various uses and how many residents can be there and so on. And to me, their description of it sounds like a personal care home. And as I recall, it's a maximum of 4 residents. Is that true?
Thank you, Ms. Baker. We were actually just looking at this, and I think that what we're looking at, the definition closely relates to residential home for the elderly.
Okay. Is that 4 residents maximum?
Less than 8? Oh, yeah, at least 2, but no maximum for that.
How many?
At least 2, but no maximum.
But no maximum.
Residential home for the elderly.
I thought there was a maximum. Okay. But one other question, there's a state license that you have to get too, isn't it? And that's why I'm just wondering if they're, I believe that they have to be licensed by the state.
Correct.
So do we have any, I guess I'll ask it to the applicants, whether you've.
Yeah, also we apply for a license too. We're just waiting for this to prove and then to move on to state license.
Oh, you're going to apply after you find out? Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay, so like the register site, or really the assessor site, says it's a 3-bedroom house. Is there additions that have been added to the house, or are y'all splitting bedrooms into multiple rooms?
No, the house is 5 bedroom. It's not 3 bedroom.
How many rooms is it?
5.
No, total rooms.
Yes.
Okay, so you're using like a living room as a bedroom.
No, 5 bedroom. They have a living room in the middle.
Okay. I'm just looking at, and this, the assessor can be very dated on things, like maybe there's an addition.
Yes.
It showed it being 7 rooms with three of those rooms being bedrooms.
No, it's 5 bedrooms.
Okay, and then a kitchen, so 5 bedrooms, then a kitchen and a living room?
Yes, patio, good patio, yes.
How many square feet is the house? Roughly?
Like around 19.
Okay, that's what that said. Okay.
1980.
Okay. Other questions, or do y'all have anything you want to add?
No, we just want to be.
Yeah. I mean, when we look at a...
Yes, I'm sorry. I have one thing.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
When I see the comment, it said one person I seen in the email is ambulance used to be home care before 2019.
Mm-hmm.
We don't operate that business. We are a new owner. So ambulance is gonna come to your house, my house, everywhere. That's not gonna be an issue.
Mm-hmm. Say that again.
You see in the email, there's somebody complaining about ambulance, the fire department.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay. The biggest problem I'm having with it is what we're allowed to, like as a board, what we look at when we're looking at a variance. And one of the things we have to look at is that there's something unique about this property that, we had that church we just did. I don't know if you paid attention to that. It's this church building that nobody has a church there right now. What can we do with it? It's a very, it's not just a house it's unique. Here it's just a house in a row of houses. So to give this house a variance to do something besides single family that everybody else is doing, that's kind of a bar I have to get over, and I'm having trouble with that, is where I am to be able to vote to do this. It's just a house in a neighborhood. We've done things like this when there's been, like, say, in that particular neighborhood, somebody built an office years and years and years ago, and there's this building. It's not a house, it's an office, or it's a medical clinic. And it doesn't get used for a while, so it doesn't have it's not proper to be there anymore. But when I look at that structure, it's a office. Here, it's just a house.
Can I say something about this?
Yeah.
So that's the thing. It's a really simple thing. It's just a house, like a single family house that we have, and it's actually gonna be a house. Like the only thing is just we trying to give the residents or the seniors residents a place to feel like they are living in their house.
Sure.
That's the whole idea of this kind of business, is to feel house, to feel home, where they don't have to feel that they are living in like a commercial place where away from their home, or something is different from their past living or past years, that they, like, when they were okay, when they were good, and they were able to do their daily routines things. That's the idea, is just to feel house and feel that you are still, nothing has changed. It's like you are living in your own house.
Right. And I totally get that, like to have a place that doesn't feel so hospital-like or something like that. The problem is just the location of the house is in the middle of just single family. Like, you can't have over, I think, more than 4 unrelated parties living in a house. And that goes against code too. That becomes a boarding house. So it's just
four residents in the house.
Yeah, in general, but then even what you're doing is different than that. I'm just saying there's code things that keep that from taking place in the middle of a single family residential. I know that Coleman is not the busiest street, but it's a bigger street there. But it is all residences. And so that's still where I do hear what you're saying. It's like if it was on a great place for something like this for a variance is like, well, it's on the corner and it's next to commercial. It's like the first house off a commercial. Here, it's in the middle of everything, that just has one driveway. And this, I know they don't drive, but you got people coming in and out. I just don't know. Yeah, visitors coming to see them. It's just the code doesn't find such a use appropriate there, which is exactly why you're here, So anything else you can add before we move to the opposition?
We are planning to change the parking lot structure, so we can have a bigger parking lot once we get the approved. So the parking lot, we're gonna make it curved, where we can, we're not gonna have like any visitors to park on the streets, and they can just park in the curb parking, and they can drive in the backyard, because we're gonna have it bigger, and the parking lot will be going through the backyard. So there won't be any people or visitors parking on the street.
Mm-hmm.
They're gonna have to just drive in and
Just have the circle drive.
the
Let's
circle,
go.
and they can drive all the way to the backyard because we have a wood door for the backyard that we're gonna keep open for the visitors, if any visitors there, to drive and to the backyard. So they're gonna park in the backyard.
Okay.
And we have a big backyard and a big patio. So everything, all the activities will be in the back of the home, not in the front of the home.
Okay.
So no one from the neighbors will be impacted from this. And we're gonna have, like I said before, a good management system, and we probably gonna have security to be there just in case any residents try to like run to the streets or anything happen. We're gonna have a full control over that.
Okay. Any other questions before we move on? Okay. And I have, all right, y'all are good for now. You'll have a chance to speak again. I had somebody here in opposition, but I think they may have just left.
No, she's here.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I didn't see you over there. I thought you were part of staff. I thought you were a new face. So, ma'am, you can go ahead and take a seat. So you're Miss Moore? Okay, if you'll give your name and address for the record, then I'll swear you in, okay?
Okay, so my name is Jasmine Moore, and I live at 3118 Coleman Road, and I've been there since.
Okay, let me swear you in before you tell me the story. Okay, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I promise.
Okay, go ahead, Miss Moore.
Okay, so I've been a homeowner since 2019 in October. And when I moved there, before Coleman became a 2-lane street, the street is always busy, even now with the 2 lanes. And so when I moved there, I don't know who was the owner of the home because I only know a few of my neighbors, and more to the right of me and the left, I never met my neighbors across the street. So the house has always been busy, heavy traffic. When I moved there, it already seemed to have already been some type of care home, but I know I can vaguely remember like a couple of times, maybe just one, an elderly lady walking down the street in her pajamas, and a staff member dressed in scrubs walked out to go get her and redirect her back in the home. Other than that, I mean, ambulance come every once in a while, fire trucks, police, because it's a lot of traffic there. My current issue with the home now is it's nobody there, it's vacant. They recently cleaned up the home about a month or so ago, and they left stuff all over the yard. It was stuff everywhere from furniture to tires, paint buckets, I mean everything. And I called code enforcement to have it cleaned up because I care about the value of my home and I don't want my property value to go down. So for me, I'm not against the care home, but in the state of Tennessee, it can only be 5 people in a home coming from a healthcare industry. It can only be 5 people in a home in a residential area, but that street is not a good place for a residential home. And considering the circumstances of the current owners with not keeping their lawn up and parking on the grass, I don't think that's a good idea. I'm against it because I can't see any change happening. Like, I've been there since 2019 and the house has been the same. A lot of traffic, trash everywhere. It's messy. It's messy, but today, on court day, it got cleaned. It looks really nice over there now. So I hate that I'm the only neighbor that showed up. I didn't get a chance to send a thesis to everybody so that I'd make sure they would be here. But I hope you do consider my concerns, because if it's been continuing all this time with that home, with the vacant, it's been vacant for a little while. It's always renters in and out. I've never seen these 2 neighbors before, but if it's been the same way all that time, I can't see change happening, but I am optimistic about it.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, any questions for Ms. Moore? Okay, thank you so much.
I can go now? I can go home?
You can do whatever you want to.
Okay.
Yeah, you can definitely sit down. You can decide to do what you want to do. All right, if y'all want to come back up and say anything else, you can. It's a rebuttal.
I have a question. Yes, it was a lot of trash before because, the old tenant, when they moved, they messed up the house. We're fixing the house. That's why the trash is outside. Yes, we clean it. We remodel the whole house, the kitchen, the bathrooms, the old rooms, That's why you see that, maybe you see the trash, yes. It be picked up, yes. We clean up, yes. I don't know what else to say.
All right, any other questions? Okay, thank you. We'll discuss, and if we could get a motion to approve case number 7 as conditioned by staff.
So moved.
Second?
All right, any discussion? I would just say, for me, like, the trash or no trash doesn't really matter to me. I think I'm still just stuck that I can't grant a variance on this request, given that it's a house in a neighborhood that can be used as a house in a neighborhood.
I agree completely. I just don't think it meets the standards.
Right, right.
So,
Any other comments?
Yeah, my similar comment, and we just had a case about allowing commercial, and the residents would be paying, and this just a house.
Yeah.